Hey, everybody, we are getting right onto radio right now. So let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. And when I say beyond, what do I mean? Well, I mean that me in live in studio and watch any of our hosts on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble. You can go check me out there. You can see me in studio, interact with me right there. And obviously, you can always text or call in at 309 451 9299, our phone and call line and everything, 309 451 9299. But if you go watch on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble, you can leave comments right there and I can interact with you right there. Well, everybody, we're going to get into the show, but real quick, I do want to do a big shout out to my good friend Paul Garcia out of Paul Garcia Productions. Paul Garcia Productions out of Central Illinois provides the top quality video advertisements and just video production for businesses in the area. So if you want your business to get more business, definitely check out Paul Garcia Productions today. Paul Garcia Productions. If you're on YouTube or anywhere else, you can go into the description of this video and check out Paul Garcia Productions right there. He does amazing work and he helps sponsor this show. So thank you again to Paul Garcia Productions. But what happened this week, everybody? What happened? Think about it. Think about everything in politics, in society that has happened just in the last week alone, right? There has been so much. The Biden crime family was exposed. Trump has faced his third indictment and even already been arraigned for it. And a porn star, Mia Khalifa, gave marriage advice. There's all that and more today on Speechless. And I'm your host, Kev Phares. Hey, everybody. Obviously, if you're just tuning in, I'm your host, Kev Phares, and this is Speechless from Cities 92.9 live here in Bloomington Normal. But obviously, I have a great following of some amazing people out in the YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, and Facebook verses as well. And I want to get into everything that we're covering today. But I also want to remind, if you are out there and you're not driving and you could be watching on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere like that, don't forget to like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking about all these different stories. And during the breaks, if you're not listening to our advertisers on Cities, well, I do interact a lot and answer some comments throughout that. Throughout those chats. But let's get right on into it because, like I said, there's so much that has happened in this last week, and a lot of it ties together because there's different media narratives being spun depending on who you're watching and who you're listening to. And obviously a lot of this show is my opinion, but I want to lay out just how intertwined so much of this is. So let's start off with the Biden crime family being exposed. And this all centers around one guy. And it's not, well, I mean, obviously Joe Biden is involved, Hunter Biden's involved, their entire family's involved, but there's one guy that this last week really blew up into the media, and his name is Devon Archer. And you might have heard this name now, but Devon Archer, who he is he joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company, Burisma Holdings LLC, with Hunter Biden in 2014. So obviously he was related to Hunter's Ukrainian business ties, and he also founded Rosemont Seneca Partners, a private equity firm with Hunter. Now, Devon Archer last Monday appeared before the House Oversight Committee and gave a damning testimony that proved something that all of us really already knew, right? I know people on the left, people that are progressives that knew this as well, is that Joe Biden is a corrupt liar. That's what he proved. But now it is in public record, and now we are in the process of proving it. During the transcribed interview, Devon Archer confirmed that then Vice President Joe Biden was the brand. He was the quote unquote brand that his son sold around the world to enrich the Biden family. Then Vice President Biden joined Hunter Biden and his business associates for dinners or by phone over 20 times to sell the quote unquote brand. So Joe is just the brand, everybody. He's the brand that is being sold as the vice president. Like, what kind of world do we live in where we have the sitting vice president and his son, in the most egregious form of nepotism I have ever seen, is literally using his dad's political power and pull to gain millions and millions of dollars off of these foreign businesses. Like it's a party trick or something that, oh, I can just call up the vice president. That's basically what it sounds like too. So Vice President Biden joined Hunter Biden and his business associates for dinners or by phone over 20 times to sell this brand and to send a signal about their power, access, and influence. Seriously, this is what Devon Archer testified to. And again, this is after Joe Biden has been on record several times saying that he never had anything to do with Hunter's business dealings. I've played this clip a bunch on my YouTube, but I just think it's so important for everybody to hear and see. So let's play this clip real quick.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. There is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
No, I had nothing to do, Joe says. I had nothing to do with the business dealings. I was not involved in any way, shape, or form. That's what he'll tell you. But then Devon Archer, which is not the first piece of evidence. I'm gonna lay out a lot of the corruption evidence that we have here, but this is really the icing on the cake that is setting forth the possibility of a Biden impeachment. And so Archer, when he walked into his House House Oversight Committee hearing, he was all smiles and he had multiple members of the media asking him questions, didn't say anything. But he did appear on Tucker Carlson on Twitter where a letter, this was a big thing. This was not, I didn't see this in the transcript of the over 4-hour testimony or anything. But Tucker Carlson brought a letter that was revealed from then Vice President Biden that was sent to Devon Archer. And in this letter, Biden said, this is what's written. He said, quote, "I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Who. I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed lunch. Thanks for coming." And then also there was a PS that said something like, "I'm glad you guys got together," referencing Devon and Hunter. It was hand signed, mostly typed, but had some handwriting in the PS at the bottom. So here's the thing about this letter that's a big flipping deal. It says he's sorry he didn't get a chance to talk to Devon at a luncheon the day before and was having trouble getting away from hosting President Who. Who is President Who? President Who was the president of the People's Republic of China at that time. So Biden, at that time, vice president, aired sentiment that he wanted to, quote, get away from the president of the People's Republic of China. Well, former president, but at that time was the president. One of our biggest adversaries, China. Arguably the second most powerful nation in the world, China. Oh, but Biden's sorry that he wasn't able to talk to Hunter Biden's private business associate. Again, Devon Archer had nothing to do with government. Devon Archer was not a part of the government. Devon Archer was in some ways a scummy business guy with Hunter. And that's the thing is I don't want to pretend like Devon Archer is this great guy or something. He's currently in appeals court for defrauding a Native American tribe. Like he is not a good person, but his testimony shows how absolutely corrupt the Biden family is. So again, he gets this letter from at the time Vice President Biden saying, "Oh my gosh, I wish I didn't have to meet with the Chinese president and do my job. I wish I didn't have to do my job," Biden basically said. "I'd rather be talking with my son's private business partner." What? And then he'll go on to say, again, in multiple interviews after this letter was written back in like 2014. He goes to have multiple interviews where he says, "I had nothing to do. I had no involvement with my son's business dealings. I have no idea what that's about." This is the guy that is currently running our country, everybody. Interestingly enough, the media doesn't want you to know about this Devon Archer story. They don't want you to know that Joe Biden was on over 20 phone calls. They don't want you to know that he's a that Devon Archer is a former business associate that proves that Joe had a lot more involvement than he claims to. No, they don't want you to know that. According to the Media Research Center this last week, between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern time last Monday, when the Devon Archer testimony was happening, CNN and MSNBC made a combined 759 mentions of Donald Trump, while at the same time mentioning only Devon Archer only 48 times. So let me repeat that. In about a 10-hour span, CNN and MSNBC combined mentioned Donald Trump 759 times on the day that Devon Archer was testifying. It was the biggest news if you looked on Twitter or anything like that. But the mainstream media wouldn't report it, or at least the lefty mainstream media. And for context, what that means is that if their mentions were evenly spaced out, that you would hear about Trump on either of those channels about once a minute. As for Devon Archer, you'd have to wait about 12 minutes and 30 seconds to hear the mentions. And so what does this mean? What does this mean if they're mentioning Trump each minute and Devon Archer is like 4 times an hour? What does this mean? Well, I compare it a lot to a book. A lot of people know about this book. It's highly controversial, honestly, nowadays. But it's Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know if you heard of this book, if you've read it. But there's a lot to note in this book that's very important, because not only is it yes, you can win friends with some of the things that are in it, but the influence people is the most crucial part, because that's what the media is doing here, and they're basically taking a note out of Carnegie's playbook. There's one of these rules in Dale Carnegie's book that says, quote, "Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language." And so that's a nice way of saying when you're going to meet somebody, when you're talking to somebody new. A lot of people use this on like a date or something. You want to say that person's name a lot. If you're going and you're meeting me, it's flattering, and it's a recognition that to that person, you know their name and you're going to remember it. Now, so part of that section asserts, like what I just said, that if you say someone's name enough, they'll begin to like you, and that can be true. I know it's not technically always true, though, because the liberal media will say Trump's name all the time, and obviously they don't like him and he doesn't like them back. However, there's a different rule of repetition that Carnegie touches on. The idea that if during your conversation you repeat the name several times and you associate different attributes, so you associate maybe hair color, somebody's mannerisms, the way they talk, anything like that with their name, you'll then begin to train your brain to remember that when you see this person, when you associate their attributes to their name, you'll remember their name. It's training your brain. It's washing your brain to think a certain way. It's a rule of repetition and association. Then you'll have an easier time, obviously, remembering that person's name and the things about them. Maybe how many kids they have, what their kids' names are, anything like that. Now, that can also work because like the example I just gave there is pretty innocent. It's a pretty innocent example. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to remember somebody's name for social context, for networking opportunities, things like that. But that can work. That same rule of repetition can work in getting in brainwashing you. And this is what media does. And it's not just liberal media. Now I'm going to touch on the difference between the liberal and conservative media, but it's not just liberal media that does this, but all media does it. I mean, even in ways I probably even subconsciously do it, I'll tell you, to get you to understand and think a certain way. It's repetition. Marketing does it a lot as well. Marketing, they use catchy slogans, catchy sounds, songs, things like that, and they repeat it consistently. Heck, if I say, obviously there's different associations with Bud Light right now, but for a long time, they had that Super Bowl commercial where it's dilly dilly, dilly dilly. You were able to recognize that dilly dilly meant Bud Light if you go back to like 2012, 2013. It's repetition, and it's training your brain through association, through word association. And so a way that that the liberal media does this is like what I just said. They're mentioning Trump 760 times on the day that Devon Archer is testifying. Why? This was before the indictment was and everything that the indictment and the arraignment and all that stuff. That was before all that was happening. Devon Archer was the news story last Monday, yet they were still talking about Trump more and more and more. And so this is a tactic that the lamestream media and, like I said, marketers and advertisers use. Repetition grabs your brain. An association trains it. So what it means is they'll repeat the name. They'll repeat Trump. And then they'll associate something with that. And so I've covered this on my YouTube channel on my daily show, but I wanted to cover it on the radio so that you guys can really understand you can maybe even start to recognize what these media companies do. And so let's give some examples so again, repetition grabs your brain and association trains it. So when they're yelling Trump at you, what are they yelling with it? Oftentimes they're yelling things like Trump, criminal, Trump, indicted, Trump, January 6th, Trump, insurrection. There's a litany of things. In some cases, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Nazi, Trump, fascist. And they're yelling these things to train people's brains. So then when you have that crazy liberal aunt that comes to Thanksgiving and she says, well, you can't support Trump. He's literally Hitler. Don't blame her. Well, you can kind of blame her for being dim, but blame the liberal media that is brainwashing your less in tune American public. Your people that read the headlines and then their brains get trained to have the association with the repetition. They don't do their own research. They don't even read the article. They succumb to the repetition and association that the media, advertisers, marketers, a lot of people train. And these are the messages they don't want you to know, because as soon as you start knowing it, as soon as you start recognizing it, I'm telling you, you're going to start, if this is the first time you're hearing about this, if this is something that you didn't know about, you're going to start noticing it all the time. All the time, you're going to start noticing repetition. They're going to say a name, and they're going to give a very, very charged word or association with it. It happens all the time. Trump, racist, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Nazi, all that stuff. I got to take a break here on the radio, everybody, but go check me out on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. We're just getting started here today, everybody. I still got so much more to cover. We still got all the indictments to break down. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be right back with Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okie dokie, everybody. Let's get to some comments here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know I'm covering a lot of stuff. If you guys are consistently, if you guys are consistently watching on YouTube and you watch my daily shows, I know I'm covering a lot of comparable content. But like I said, I think, especially that repetition stuff, a lot of this stuff doesn't get heard on the radio. And I want to make sure my radio audience, some of my more experienced is the nice way I'll put it, listeners, I want to make sure they get to hear these messages. So let's see who we got in here. Unconventional, as always, love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. License, good to see you. Good to see you, Raven. Biden never done that as much as I have never sent. That's funny. But yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Each and every one of you. I appreciate it. Alan, let's see what you got. Biden is a joke, period. But all the illegals will vote for him back in because he will promise money and a green card. Hell, he said it in 2020. Vote me in and I will make sure you get government money handouts. Yep. 100%. That's what the Democrats do, is they just tell everybody, we're going to give you something. We're going to give you something. Republicans say, that's why it's a harder sell. I've always said, I believe what I believe because I make some friends through different conferences and stuff and through community, but in my general peers, like in college, I'm not making friends doing this. If anything, I'm making some enemies. And so that's how you really know what I believe. And the Republican and conservative sale is a harder sale because Democrats preach this idea of do whatever you want. The government will be your leech, you can leech off the government and you can do whatever you want. You can have a good time and government will just provide it all for you. It's those scary, mean Republicans that are unkind and not accepting and intolerant. They're the problem. And as a Republican, what we say is, hey, you can do whatever you want for the most part, but don't make it affect me. And you're also going to have personal responsibility for your actions. And people don't like to hear that message. People don't like to hear that message. And that's just what we got going on right now. I see you got a friend here. DG, you think I'm cute? And I really appreciate that. But I speak a little too fast and too loudly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I get heated about what's going on. Like Raven said, I'm getting spicy. I'm getting spicy. I'm getting spicy. And so I appreciate you calling me cute though. I really do. I am getting spicy, and I got more to get spicy about. Okay, we're coming back here. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this wonderful Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5. I am live here in studio, and feel free. You can text or call in at 309-451-9299. I'm going to look here. I get any text? Oh, yep. I got a heckler in there saying some mean things, but I want you to know, here's the thing that I always try to tell my hecklers, and I texted them back this earlier, is that for everybody that's out there supporting me, that likes my content, that shares it, that subscribes, everything like that, I love you and you're great. And I definitely do what I do because of you. But my bigger motivator is the people that hate me, because the people that comment and say, Kevin, you're a moron. You're a moron. You're just a dumb college kid. That if that's you, I love you so much, because it's because of you that I know that what I'm doing is right. Because you're not commenting and saying, here are your factual inaccuracies. No, you're just telling me I'm a moron because I disrupt your worldview. And that's the point of this show. It's to disrupt the mainstream narrative, because it needs disrupting. It's to be a critical thinker. That's the point of this show. Be a critical thinker. We have to. We got to be critical thinkers. And so there's a lot of things to be critical of. And so one of them is obviously in the last segment, I was talking about the Devon Archer testimony, how the American media, like MSNBC, CNN, was absolutely lying and just kind of ignoring the entire thing. Well, MSNBC, obviously, they did end up covering it a little bit later. They ended up like the next day they would cover more about last Tuesday. They covered a little bit more. But obviously they were still, what they were doing is they were searching for the excuses to say, oh, well, Joe Biden just didn't know. Joe Biden just didn't know. And so on MSNBC's Morning Joe last Tuesday, I believe it was, Democrat Rep Dan Goldman went on to give a cushy and convenient explanation of why Joe Biden was on these phone calls with Hunter's business associates, after multiple times saying that he had never had any relation to Hunter's business associates. And so we're going to take a look. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, you can watch this video as well. But we're going to watch Dan Goldman, and we're going to listen to it on the radio. Just try to justify these justify all the corruption, all the lies. Here's that.
Could you just, with specifics, tell us these phone calls that were a matter of such discussion yesterday, like what were they about? What would then Vice President Biden say in these conversations? Walk us through what happened.
Right. So let's put this in context. Beau Biden got very sick in early 2015. He died in the spring of 2015, which was right in the middle when Devon Archer had his business dealings with Hunter Biden. At that point, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden began to speak every day because they were both devastated by Beau's death. They spoke every day. The witness testified that over his 10-year relationship with Hunter Biden, there may be approximately 20 times when in one of those conversations, Hunter Biden would put his father at a dinner, not at a business meeting, at a dinner that he was having if he happened to get a hold of his father, and would ask his father to say hello to whoever was at the table.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just Joe was just a victim in all this. He was just grieving his son, Beau. That's what the liberals are trying to say. Originally, the first thing that Dan Goldman said, I'm telling you, right after the testimony on Monday, what Dan Goldman said is that, oh, well, Joe was just on the phone and at these dinners to talk to these people about the weather. Well, like the weather, the story is changing. Now it's that Hunter and Joe were just so close that Joe just wanted to be involved in things that Hunter was doing. He didn't really know it was about business or anything. They were just grieving their son Hunter, or I'm sorry, their son Bo, and son and brother. And which is honestly one of the most despicable things I have ever heard. They're using the death of their son and brother to cover up their corruption. It's disgusting. It's sad. And we got to take a break here, but we'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Oh, hello, everybody. Okay, so obviously that was a short segment, but I just wanted to, that it's so gross to me that that is what they will do. They will literally say, oh my gosh, it's just the sad life of Joe and their loss of son Bo. Let's see what you guys are saying in here. I am on the same station as Modern Renaissance Man. How I pronounce my last name is Phares, like Ferris Bueller, but spelled way differently. So Phares, as you can see, it says it right up there. And it's spelled like Ferris Bueller. Absolutely. I am the trolls are going to troll. They think they know everything and usually know nothing 100%. I am a critical thinker, but people don't like it because I'm supposedly conservative and Christian. Both of those demand conformity. And I don't always conform. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a Catholic and I question the Catholic Church all the time. It's actually, it's biblical to question authority. I mean, that's Jesus literally was crucified for standing up and against authority. So yeah, I do want to let everybody know a few things. So first off is for everybody that's been with me for a long time, if you didn't see my post the other day, I am now monetized. I am now monetized on YouTube, not for ad revenue. That'll still take a few more subscribers and some more watch time and stuff, but I'm monetized now. And you might see right in the chat, there's a little dollar sign where you could show your support for the show if you'd like to by sending a super chat or a super sticker. Anything that is given to the show through YouTube will be reinvested into the show in some way. And so if you have the means, I don't want to make anybody feel you wouldn't if you have the means, I don't want to make anybody feel obligated to, but I would appreciate if you would consider possibly sending a super chat or one of those stickers. If not, if you want to send something through, I got Venmo and Cash App always going right down right there. So feel free to send it via that. But really, I just want to thank everybody because obviously monetization is a step in the right direction towards building a following and getting these messages out to more and more people. And you guys are 100% a part of this in every way. Every comment you send, every like you do on the little thumbs up down there. Every time you share a video with a family member, with a friend through a messenger or on Facebook, that's a way you're supporting the show in and of itself. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate all of that. And there's other ways. I think I have. I'm going to do it in the night. There's other ways, but obviously, if you guys don't know, this shirt is from United Merch Co. There's the brand right there, Anti-Socialism Social Club. I also have an ambassadorship with them. You can use code Speechless on their website. I think I have a banner for it. I can go through some of their shirts and stuff later. But if you visit United Merch Co. or UnitedMerch.com, use code Speechless at checkout for 20% off, and you can get shirts just like this and get 20% off. And it also supports the show that way as well. So any of those different ways, super chats, super likes, or the stickers, anything like that. You can send just share, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could get some t-shirts with UnitedMerch.com, anything like that. Any way you could support the show, I appreciate it. And thank you guys so much. Let's get back to some comments here. And then we're getting back to the show sometime soon. I probably wouldn't. I know that there's people that have controversial views on Catholicism. I love talking about my faith with people that either disagree or that have like a differing viewpoint. I've had a lot of great conversations about Catholicism with people that are non-denominational. I've had conversations with atheists about Catholicism. I love talking about my faith. I'll do a show about it at some point when there's maybe a little less politics going on. And I'll do something about Catholicism. Oh, well, yeah, but I'll tell you, even a lot of I won't go as far to say it's basically evil. I disagree with that one, but I a lot of Catholics I even know, including myself, have significantly questioned the Vatican and the current Pope. I miss JP2. I liked JP2. He was my Pope. Okay, we're going to come back here now. Hey, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm so happy to be talking with you guys today. My name is Kev Phares, your host, 22-year-old conservative college student that goes right down the street, Illinois State University. I go there, and I can tell you it's not easy being a conservative college kid nowadays, but I don't think anybody expected it to be. I got a lot to say. If you've listened to the first half of the show, or the first half of this hour of the show, you heard me talk about Devon Archer. Devon Archer, who is single-handedly not even single-handedly, but he this last week single-handedly exposed significant lies that Joe Biden has told regarding the corruption and his relationship to Hunter Biden's Ukrainian and foreign private businesses while being the vice president of the United States. Obviously, now he's the president, but we're going back in time to look at all that stuff. But you heard it, everybody. And in the last clip I played in the last segment, I've been talking about how the media is spinning these narratives as one, they're going to keep exalting Trump into the media and Trump's bad. Trump's a criminal. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to try to associate in people's heads, is that Trump is Hitler, Trump is a fascist, and brainwash people into thinking. That's what they did. Why do you think there is literally this thing called Trump derangement syndrome? Trump derangement syndrome is a product of the brainwashing that parts of the American media have done. If you say Trump is a racist enough, if you repeat a lie enough, people will begin to believe it. Heck, if you repeat a lie enough to yourself, you'll begin to believe it. And that is what the American media is doing. And now they're even trying to spread the lie that, oh, well, Joe is not corrupt. He's actually just a victim. He's a victim of having a son that passed away. That's the one that they're trying to push now, is, well, his son passed away, and so we need to feel bad for him. He didn't know about these business dealings or anything because he was just busy trying to reconnect with his son Hunter because of grieving over his son Beau's death. That's what it is, which is so insane when you think about like the idea that the American media and Democrats are trying to use the loss of a human life of Beau Biden to explain and excuse the lies and corruption from the president. The death of his son is being used as a cover-up and as an excuse. So that's absolutely insane. But a question I've been getting from people is, why hasn't Biden been impeached yet? And it's a fair question. During the Trump years, I'm old enough to remember that all it took for Trump to get his first impeachment in 2019, you guys remember the perfect phone call with Ukraine when he called Vladimir Zelensky. All it took, there was one anonymous whistleblower that came forward. There was an anonymous whistleblower, so they had no idea who he was. He claimed to be a CIA agent, and he alleged that there was a phone call that took place, and he was not, the whistleblower wasn't present for the phone call, but he claimed that it happened. And so that sparked that in and of itself, that single anonymous phone call or anonymous that single anonymous whistleblower sparked a investigation that led to the impeachment inquiry. A whistleblower that, again, had not been present for the phone call and then sparked the release of a transcript. And that's all it took to begin that impeachment inquiry against Trump. Then the Dems searched for everyone and everything they could to make Trump look like an extortionist, to say that he was withholding military aid from Ukraine unless he got some investigation into Joe Biden about the business dealings that we are now investigating and finding out have a lot of legal merit or actual corrupt merit to it. But I digress. What they did, I mean, the Democrats went for everybody. They went for people associated with Ukraine, Kurt Volker, Bill Taylor, Rudy Giuliani's documents. And then they got the quote unquote smoking gun, which was Gordon Sondland, who was the ambassador to the EU. But again, Trump was acquitted. Nothing actually happened. For Biden, And in this case, we have texts. We have Hunter's laptop from hell that not only reveals the extent of his addiction and his enthusiasm for ladies of the night, but it also is where we got a significant amount of evidence regarding his foreign business dealings and Joe Biden's involvement. We have Tony Bobolinsky, who confirms that Joe Biden is the quote unquote big guy that was referenced in these emails, such as the one that alleges the big guy would receive 10% share in a deal with China, with a Chinese energy firm. We now have Devon Archer. How much more do we need? How much more do we need to impeach Joe Biden? The fact is nothing. Look, here's the thing. Impeachment inquiries are relatively easy to set up because the criteria for an impeachment, as listed within Article 1 of the Constitution, states, and I quote, "The president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors." So it's incredibly vague. It is a very, very vague part of the Constitution. And it's why Democrats were able to set 2 BS impeachments up against Trump and for relatively baseless claims of obstruction and abuse of power. Honestly, they set a terrible precedent by carrying out those impeachments. That's what I always complain about. I was like, look, there might actually be something there. But when they set them up, they set up these inquiries when they had very little to go off of for them. It set an awful legal precedent. However, the precedent has now been set. The precedent has been set, and we have more evidence than the Dems ever did for the impeachment of Joe Biden. The iron is hot, but it could cool, so it's time to strike. But here's a few things that I will note with that. The first is maybe it's strategic. Maybe the reason why Joe Biden has yet to be impeached is because it's a strategy. If Republicans are smart, what they could be doing is trying to play a little bit more of that word association game and frankly, brainwashing that the Democrats are always doing. Why did we have the Trump indictment and Trump arraignment this last week? Right after all this stuff comes out about Joe Biden. It's strategic. And so that's why I'm thinking a potential impeachment of Joe Biden could be strategic in the fact that if they wait till we do it closer to the election, it could have Democrats scrambling. If we impeach him and remove him, it could have Democrats scrambling to find another nominee, which would then likely be Kamala Harris. And that's the second point I'll get to is if we were able to get Joe Biden fully impeached, what it would take right now is we'd have to get like one Democrat from the Senate because we have the House. We'd probably be able to impeach him in the House pretty easily. It'd be the Senate that we'd have to worry about because we'd have to get like one Democrat over. So we'd have to get enough evidence and everything to prove that he should be impeached to get like a Kyrsten Sinema or a Joe Manchin to impeach him. But then we'd have Kamala Harris as the president. And there's a few things that I would hate about that. The first is it's Kamala Harris. Enough said. But the second would be, I would have no problem with having a black woman president. I think there are some great options of a woman of color that we could have as president. But I don't want it to be Kamala Harris because I'd like it to be a competent and intelligent female president. Just saying. That's what I would say is what I would want is not Kamala Harris. But maybe it's strategic. I think we're going to get an impeachment. I think that this will lead to it with everything that we're seeing. We're going to get an impeachment. It's just going to take a little while. And hopefully the Republicans are genuinely smart. But then again, we got some people that are leading the party right now. I mean, we saw Mitch McConnell freeze up like a week ago. And you guys see that one when Mitch McConnell froze up and crapped his pants? Yeah. I mean, those are some of the leaders that we have in the Republican Party. So I have faith, but I have skepticism just as much. And so let's get into, so I covered earlier how the mainstream media wants to talk about Trump so much and associate Trump with being an awful person. And I even there's this video, I gotta find it. And I know DPB played a little bit of it on his show. So I'm going to pull it up as well. But there's a video that shows how every time that something bad comes out about Biden, immediately after there's something with Trump. And this just goes, and I'm going to lay it out throughout the rest of the show. But there is a lot to say about how about how strategic these indictments are against Trump. Right now, he has 3 pending indictments. Then he has a criminal investigation that's likely to lead into his 4th indictment in Georgia. And so there's a lot to be said about what is going on in our world right now. I'm going to pull up this video because we are getting near the end of this segment, but I want to play this clip that was actually one of Trump's attorneys laying out a decent timeline of every time that something happens with Biden, every time that something comes up out about Biden and how bad and something that shows his corruption, we quickly learn that in fact somebody or something else is going. I believe that this is the clip I'm looking for. Yes, I'm pulling it up right here. Sorry, I wasn't planning on this originally. Let's get this clip playing. I believe this is the right one. If it's not, we'll play the right one later. Roll clip.
On March 17th, Hunter accidentally admits that it was his laptop from hell. The next day, DA Alvin Bragg indicts President Trump. June 8th, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. The next day, the Mar-a-Lago raid and the Mar-a-Lago indictment. Last week, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it had blanket immunity. The following day, a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. July 31st, Devon Archer goes to testify in front of the House. That was only after they failed to put him in jail prior to the fact. What happens the next day? The January 6th indictment that we're here for today. This is not a coincidence. This is election interference at its finest against the leading candidate right now for president, for either party.
This is election interference. Absolutely. And again, and I think this is the most important thing. So we get all these hecklers that text into the station and they're like, oh my God, like Trump's going to jail. Trump's going to jail. Okay, first off, that's just like not going to happen. Like the world in which Trump goes to jail, there's no chance that our system would allow that. I mean, there's no chance because this isn't about Trump actually being any kind of criminal. This is about interfering with the election. This is about trying to make sure that Trump doesn't get, Trump doesn't get either the nomination or win the general. They're trying to keep associating. They're trying to distract you. That's the biggest thing. They're trying to distract you from how bad Biden is by trying to remind low propensity voters how bad they think Trump is. That's what they're trying to do. And they are interfering with the election because they are not allowing people to see everything. And again, I am not Trump 2024 as of right now. Look, if he wins the primary, I'm all aboard for him. But he's not my first pick. But the fact of the matter is you don't have to be a person that is 100% pro-Trump to see how insane the weaponization of our justice system has become to benefit the incumbent and interfere with the campaign of the leading challenger. It's insane. And I got to take a break here from the radio, but don't worry. You guys can go still check me out on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. I'm on all those, and you can interact with me, and I'll interact with you. Just come check me out on all those. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll be right back. I'm your host, Kev Phares, with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, I got to take that headset off briefly. Let's see what we got some friends saying in here. This is true. The more they come after Trump, the more popular he becomes. They just don't get it. He's the Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to him. He'll get out of this mess. God is on his side. I support him 100%. I don't blame you. I understand why people support Trump. I have different criteria. I look at, I've had this debate a lot, so I won't go into all of it, but a big thing for me is age. I don't know if this is supposed to be, I don't know what this is aimed at, Sita. My IQ is not in single digits. I have done an IQ test, so I can tell you my IQ is not in single digits. This is funny. You're funny, Raven. You're funny. If Sleepy Joe is so far gone that he can be hoodwinked by a crackhead, he shouldn't be in office. That reminds me, I'll play this for you guys real quick. Just in response to this comment.
My son Hunter is the smartest guy I know.
He is the smartest man I know. I mean, in terms of pure intellectual capacity.
He's the smartest man I know from a purely intellectual capacity. Yep, that's what it is. You have to be really stupid not to see the corruption going on with the Biden family. Yep. Kamala is worse than Joey. You weren't talking about me. Well, I appreciate it. You're probably talking about the people that can't see the lies and the corruption. And that's the thing is like, I would have such a problem if this was a Republican candidate or president as well. Like the stories we're seeing, like it's not about being a Republican or Democrat. I like, this is not about being a Republican or Democrat. This is about pure lying to the American people, a lack of transparency from government officials, abuses of power, obstruction, and again, lying to the American people. We just have I don't know. We have a crazy, crazy time we are currently living in. I understand. I understand when it comes to Trump and age and everything. I mean, Trump will be 80, and and the thing is, I understand people care about function and stuff, and yeah, Trump seems lively and everything like that. But I want, as a younger person, I believe that when you get to that age, you're not always focused on preserving the world for a long term because you're not going to be in it much longer. And so that's why I think that we need younger people. And also, here's the other thing. I don't know. I'm going to Google this real quick. It might be something to talk about. Yeah. So, one thing, what I was looking up is how many of our representatives have children. I guess a better question would be how many Congress people don't have kids. Because I believe that you will be a worse you'll be a worse representative if you don't have children. Because you don't have anything that you're like looking out for. I can't find the statistic. I'm looking to see if there's I'm looking at your comments here. I have a different story then that we're going to cover. I always have extra stories. We're going to cover a different one in this segment. I covered it a little bit on my YouTube channel earlier this week, but we're coming back on the radio, so just stay tuned. Let me find it. Here we go. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I only have 5 minutes in this segment. There's something I really want to address because I just got this article has been making its way around. And obviously, I've been talking about Joe Biden corruption, and I'm going to talk more about the Trump indictments in the next hour. But this is one thing, because I only have a short time. This is one that I really want to cover because there is a lot. Because there's a lot of people that have been covering this poll And I think that some people are missing the message in it. So this is out of the Hill, a popular narrative, and many people that are in my comments section right now and listening believe this narrative suggests that young people are liberal and getting more liberal. The social media buzzed when charts surfaced in the spring that seem to suggest 12th grade boys have become overwhelmingly conservative. This is true. I'm being 100% honest with you. There is a poll that shows that 12th grade boys are becoming overwhelmingly conservative. If you are currently on Facebook, I'm going to pull up these charts so you can see. Just pulling it up right now. Let's get so we can look at the exact numbers of these charts. Here you go. So let's pull this into my stream. Yes, so we got that up there. And so you can see when we're looking at the poll of 12th grade boys, we could see that overwhelming majority more recently are becoming more conservative, and very few are liberal. But the thing that a lot of people are celebrating that these young boys are becoming very, very conservative. However, if you look at the inverse, an increasing number of girls are becoming of high school girls are becoming liberal. So it's great that we do have young, intelligent men. But we have a lot of girls that are going the other way. And so why is this? So first off, we need to make sure that when we talk about this poll, we're not just happy about the boys. We also need to say, how can we convince young women to want to be conservative as well? And I think a big part of that is recognizing where this came from. So let's just break it down, boys versus girls. So boys in this current society, especially young white men, are told to hate themselves. They are the enemy. They're colonizers. They're the patriarchy. So that they're told that things that they want to do, like roughhousing or be stoic and not necessarily be hyper emotional, they're told that that's toxic. Not to mention that one of the primary functions for men throughout human history is currently being destroyed. It was once considered a role of a man to be a provider. And now there's a significant level of society that blasts men for having that instinct to want to provide. And they say, well, not only can women provide too, they must be the providers to destroy the quote unquote patriarchy. You have to let women provide, or else you're a bigot to some of these lefties. And so, well, where do women fall on this spectrum? Well, as I showed on the graph, many young women are becoming liberal. And why is this? Because it's traditionally not the role of women to be the providers. And so when they are looking then for a provider, because society's also saying men can't be the provider, so who's going to be the provider? Well, liberalism offers a provider that's not a man. It offers the government, which ironically has more men in it than women, but I digress on that one. You can't point that out, otherwise you're a sexist. Anyways, but the government at a liberal standard provides everything, right? They want to have free health care. They want to have they want to have a universal basic income. They want to have everything provided for them. And so they want to have wealth redistribution. And so women look to that. Of course, that's not the only reason that young boys are leaning conservative while women are going towards liberalism. There's also the sexual revolution that says that women can own the sexual marketplace and the dating marketplace, and they own nothing to a man, while also preaching that they should not have to bear any consequence for sexual immorality by saying that you should just be able to have an abortion on demand. Liberalism preaches to women that they can do whatever they want and face no accountability. And I don't want to say that men aren't a problem in pushing women towards liberalism as well. There's a lot of crappy men that enable sexually immoral and bad and just poor behavior that pushes women towards liberalism as well. But I got to take a break from the radio, everybody. We'll be back in the second hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Don't forget to text or call in at 309-451-9299. And we'll be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, everybody. Sorry, I was so quick. It's just because of what's going on in all of that. Whew. Okay, I need to I'll be honest with everybody. I have to use the little boys' room in this break because it's a longer break. So I will be back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stick around, have a chat in the comments, and I will be back and recognize and look at a lot of what you guys are saying. So I'll be right back. I'm about to be right back onto the radio, everybody. So let's get right back into it. Thank you guys for everybody who's stuck around. And let's get back into it. Let's have a good time talking about this. Is going to be all about Trump's indictments. Let's get into this. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. I'm your host, Kev Phares, live in studio, 22-year-old conservative college student from Illinois State University. That I got big dreams, everybody. I got big dreams. I've been studying for the LSAT a lot recently. I take it next Saturday, so we'll see how that goes, and I hope it goes well. Plan on going to law school. And so a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is right up my alley, especially when it comes to all these indictments. But I do want to remind everybody, if you're listening in your car right now, obviously don't do this because it could be a little dangerous. And you could always text or call in at 309-451-9299. Join in on the conversation, 309-451-9299. But you could also be watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble. You might hear some of our ads and stuff. If you want to see your favorite Cities hosts, including myself, you can go to our Facebook page, Cities929, or look up on cities929.com or on YouTube. You could just look for your favorite podcasts, radio host, and you can find their YouTube link and actually see us live in studio. We had David Paul Blumenshine on earlier today. Every morning we have conservative Kat Peterson, who hosts the Morning Buzz with Kat Peterson, her show. And she does that, like I said, every morning, 6 to 9 a.m. You might hear it on the radio, but you could also be watching her in studio. Ty Smith obviously has his own YouTube channel, Modern Renaissance Man, where he covers a lot of the fun stories throughout the week. And I obviously, on my own YouTube channel, I do daily shows. And so a lot of this content that I'm bringing you today, I've covered a little bit on my daily shows, but there's more and more to always talk about. And this story, I talked about in the first hour. A lot of my first hour was dedicated to the ideas of how Devon Archer comes out and blows the entire case of the Biden crime family wide open. He blows it open. But a lot of the liberal media, if they were covering it, were trying to find excuses for Joe, saying, oh, well, he's just a victim because his son died and he was grieving, and so he didn't really know what he was doing. All this kind of stuff, right? All that kind of stuff. But the liberal media also wanted to try to push the media narrative over to Trump. And so I played another clip in the last hour that was about how every time that something damning comes out about Biden, there immediately after is another indictment of Trump. And there's a lot to break down in terms of the strategy that is being used in the weaponization of our Justice Department and our justice system against the Trump campaign and against Trump, the man. And so let's break down currently let's break down this most recent indictment. And then I'm going to go through the strategy of all the indictments that are currently out. So this most recent indictment that was filed by Jack Smith in DC, alleges 4 different charges. There's conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. So why is he being charged with these? Okay, so there's conspiring to defraud the United States and conspiring to disenfranchise voters. Both of these are rooted in the idea that Trump spread quote unquote misinformation. So they're trying to say that because they're trying to charge him basically for saying that the 2020 election was stolen. And so this is a little off topic, but I want to say, look, I am not the person. I don't know all the numbers and everything. I'm not one that I like to see hard facts when I talk about something. And so I'm not going to come up here and say that there was widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election. There very well could have been, and maybe it's just being suppressed, like the evidence of it very well could have been. But what I will say is 100% the 2020 election was rigged by the media. It is shown that many within the establishment suppressed on social media the Hunter Biden laptop story and plenty of other stories that did not shed a favorable light on Democrats. Had people actually known those stories, I believe the election could have gone a drastically different way, and thus it was rigged. But back to these charges and everything, they're trying to claim that Trump was lying about voter fraud, and thus had conspiracy to defraud and disenfranchise voters of the United States. And then there's the other two charges, which is conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. And this, of course, is regarding Trump's attempt to have Mike Pence alter and overturn the election results, as well as just all the events of January 6th. Really, what they're charging him with is making not good statements, which isn't a crime. And when I say not good, I mean, in their opinion, it's not good. He said things that they didn't like, and they're trying to turn that into a crime. And you can't put somebody in jail for thought crime. No matter how many people told Trump, because this is what they say. So I skimmed through the indictment, and basically their entire evidence that they push is, well, Trump had lawsuits that failed. Trump had all these quote unquote experts that told him that it wasn't widespread voter fraud. And so they're trying to say that all these people told him this. And so thus he was lying. And that's the problem. But the thing is that no matter how many people told Trump that the election was not stolen by voter fraud, he still has every right to both believe and say that it was. The prosecution's burden of proof in this case, at least based on the case that they have set up for themselves, their burden of proof is on the idea that Trump knowingly spread lies, which is an incredibly hard thing to prove. How do you prove that? That somebody knew that they spread lies? The only way that you could prove that is that if you have Trump on a hot mic, you have Trump on a tweet, a Truth Social, anything like that. If you have anything that would show that Trump knew that actually knew, and he personally recognized that the election was not stolen by voter fraud, that is the only way that you could say that he knowingly lied, which at that point, it would potentially constitute the crimes that they're charging him with. But there is no evidence to point to that in this indictment. And that's where you would have it, because they've listed all this other evidence to try to say that he knew, saying that, oh, well, all these people came out and said and told him. Well, just because he was told things, I have all these liberal professors in college that tell me that socialism is a good idea. Doesn't mean I'm going to believe it. Doesn't mean I'm going to believe it. So they just what he knew at this time is that other people told him that the election was not stolen by voter fraud, but he continued to say it, and he continued I believe that he continued to believe it. I've been given no evidence to suggest otherwise. Heck, there are plenty of people out there where you tell them time and time again that socialism does not work, and they'll continue to believe it does. So I want to bring in another thing here real quick too. The left oftentimes is going after Trump's Florida indictment because it has a Trump appointed judge. So they claim it's going to be unfair because that judge was appointed by Trump. Well, it's only fair that we recognize that this case has arguably the most Trump hating judge in DC, Judge Tanya Chutkan, who has delivered that's who's the DC judge, the most recent indictment judge, has delivered some of the harshest sentences to January 6th defendants and has made her disgust and horror over the Capitol incident clear. She often hands down sentences to people charged in relation to the events of January 6th that are over the legal minimum. So the legal minimum, whatever they're charged with, whether it's breaking and entering or attempt to disrupt a official proceeding, those kinds of charges, there will be a legal minimum, like a certain amount of years in jail or a certain amount of time probation, whatever. And she will hand down charges, or she'll hand down sentences that are much longer than what that minimum is. And just this I believe it was on Friday, maybe it was yesterday, Trump called for a recusal of the judge in the January 6th case on, quote, very powerful grounds. In a Truth Social is essentially a tweet, he said, there is no way I can get a fair trial with the judge assigned to the ridiculous freedom of speech, fair elections case. Everybody knows this, and so does she. We will be immediately asking for recusal of this judge on very powerful grounds, and likewise for a venue change out of DC. And this is smart. I would have predicted that Trump was going to do this anyways. But let's break down as that relates, because that relates a lot to the rest of the cases as well. And so let's talk about the entire strategy of all of these indictments, and I'll also touch on what I would briefly think might actually happen in these cases as well. So the first is, the first strategy is that they're just trying to throw everything in the legal world at Trump until something sticks. They're throwing tomatoes at a wall, seeing which one will actually stay on the wall. Right now, he has 3 pending indictments. The one in New York, which is the one in New York has to do with Stormy Daniels, the classified documents, one in Florida, and now this DC one. And I wouldn't be surprised. There's going to be another one probably once the next bad thing about Joe Biden comes out. I guarantee you soon after, they're going to announce an indictment in Georgia because there's currently a criminal investigation related to Trump in Georgia regarding his actions in terms of the 2020 election. And so there's probably going to be an indictment there as well. This means that by the election next year, likely by the primary of next year, Trump will have 3, if not 4, pending indictments. So let's break them down quickly. The first is the New York one, which is for falsifying business records related to the Stormy Daniels hush money payments. And honestly, this is a flimsy case. The prosecution knows it, but it's going to get media attention. Again, it comes out soon after one of Biden's scandals that he was being indicted for this. And it's so that, again, remember when I talked at the very beginning of the show, if you're just tuning in, you might not remember, but I'll break it down again quickly, is what the media is trying to do is they're going to say Trump, and they're going to create associations with Trump so that people think about the different scandals that he has had. So the first one is the Stormy Daniels one. Trump, Stormy Daniels, Trump, hush money, Trump, corrupt. That's what they are going to push, and that is why they have this indictment pending. The second indictment is the Florida indictment. And this is the ever-expanding one regarding Trump's classified documents and quote-unquote willful retention of national security secrets. And this one, I just see somebody put a comment that says all the cases are flimsy and a stretch. I would disagree only because of the Florida case. So this one actually holds the most weight because based on the current evidence provided and the charges he has against him, it seems like Trump actually committed this crime. I'm serious. It does actually seem like Trump committed this crime, but that comes with a big, big, big but. This also exposes our two-tier justice system. And what I mean by that is there is also evidence to prove that Bill Clinton did a very comparable crime with the documents in his sock drawer. You have Hillary who had a comparable crime with her emails and the private server that she destroyed. You have Mike Pence and or Biden that just within the last year also had classified documents and committed comparable crimes. So all of that said, none of these people were indicted besides Trump. And so while Trump actually seems like he potentially committed this crime, if we're going to go after him for this crime, then we need to go after all of them. Everybody who has obviously committed a comparable crime. And so two things can be true at the same time that I want to be clear. And I know this is not the most popular thing to say, especially when a lot of my listeners are very, very pro-Trump people, but this is the truth. This is the truth. Two things can be true at the same time. Trump can be guilty of a crime while the weaponized justice system selectively charges him for said crime. So this case will be heard in Florida. And the other thing that I will say is that the hope for Trump, and this is what he's trying to do with the DC case, which with trying to get a new judge and trying to move the case out of DC, is the hope for Trump is that they're much more likely in Florida to find a juror that will hold out against a guilty verdict simply because they recognize that the premise for this case being brought up is corrupt. And there is a political basis for this indictment. That's probably what's going to happen. Now, the third indictment, which is the January 6th one, which I just laid out everything. The strategy behind this case is that right now, unless they get it moved, his jury will be set in DC. And so again, this one is like the most flimsy out of all of them. There is no way, what they really seem to want to charge him with this. If you look at all the evidence, I would have guessed that the charge would have been incitement of an insurrection or incitement of a riot. But they didn't charge him with that. They didn't charge him with that because they know it wouldn't win either. But they charged him with the things that could make the headlines. Oh, obstruction, and he lied, lying maybe, but would have maybe been illegal, but he didn't actually even lie. I firmly believe he believes all the things that he said. But the strategy behind the DC one is that there will be in DC, 99% of that area hates Trump. And would basically find him, you could bring him forward for like a homicide and have no evidence of it, and they would still probably convict him just because they hate him. So that's the problem. And that's a lot of the strategy. I'm going to break down a little bit more of the strategy in the next segment, but I got to get to a break here on the radio because it's obviously a lot. And so stick with me, guys, because there's a point to all this. And I don't like staying on one story for as long as I am, but it's a lot of stories all combining into the Democrat and establishment plan to interfere with the 2024 election. That's really what it is. And we're going to talk about all that and more, but we got to take a break here on Cities 92.9. I'm your host, Kev Phares. You're listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, I see a lot of your guys's comments. I'm going to get to those. Let's take a look here. Haven't seen Ty in forever. This is insane. I have to look into this because that'd be an insane story. I haven't heard about that one that much, but I miss some things sometimes. All the case again, the Florida one, a little bit different. Yes, but he is literally the problem is that Trump steps on his own feet. I mean, there are literal recordings of him saying, I could have declassified it, but I did not. And so that's the problem. You're right. He does have this right. But he also came out and said that he didn't do it for some of his documents. I think you give, yes, he did. Look, we're going to agree to disagree on this one then, but there's transcripts and audio recordings of it. I actually don't think I think Trump is smart in certain areas, but I don't think politically he is the most intelligent person. I'm pulling it up just so you can see that this is actually something that Trump said. And this is like, I'm trying to get people out of the echo chamber. That's really like the thing, is because like, Trump admits on tape. Here's from The Hill. I'll show my screen right now so you can see it. I got to come back on the radio in like 30 seconds, but let's do this one right there. Full screen. Trump admits on tape he didn't declassify secret information. It's according to a July 2020 recording that he had not declassified secret information. The exact quote is, "As president, I could have declassified, but now I can't." Secret. This information is secret. Look at this. He reportedly added another point. This was done by the military and given to me. I'm just going with the evidence I have. Like, so I got to come back on. Okay. Well, show me, DG. Look, show me how it's not true. Show me how it's not true then, please. I mean, I guess that's what the court's going to do too, but like, I love you guys. I'm just trying to show, this is the evidence that I have. If I'm wrong, I always admit I could be wrong. Just show me how I'm wrong. All right. I got to come back on the radio though. Hey, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student from Illinois State University, just covering the news as I see it. And I've been laying out a lot of the different controversy surrounding the now 3 Trump indictments that we have. And I've been getting into some arguments. I'll be honest. I see there's some people in my chat. Here's the thing. Show me how I'm wrong. If I'm ever wrong, if I'm ever actually wrong, show me the evidence that counters my opinion. I'm more than open to it. I like I said, I always say, I do my best. And I know we can fall into our holes of echo chambers and such, but it's good to be a critical thinker and to try to say, where could I be wrong? Poke holes in your own argument. And so one thing that I said in the last segment, and I brought up, there's multiple news articles about it, is that the Florida indictment is the only one that I see that has any weight against Donald Trump. The reason for this is because, and a lot of people like to bring up the Presidential Records Act, right? A lot of people like to bring up the Presidential Records Act, and that does hold weight in the fact that, yes, Donald Trump and any president, as they are president, have the right to declassify just about anything they want to as the president. All they got to do is say, I declassify it. But according to a transcript from a meeting in 2021, Trump had said that he retained secret military information that he had not declassified, according to a transcript of the audio. He said, and I quote, "As president, I could have declassified, but now I can't." That is what they could get Trump on in Florida. But again, when it comes to this case, the hope for the defense team, for Trump's defense team, is that being in Florida and also being that there's evidence to show that Mike Pence also committed this crime, Joe Biden committed this crime, Hillary Clinton committed this crime, and Bill Clinton committed this crime. Because there is evidence to show each and every one of those, this is a two-tier justice system, and you're likely in Florida, which is a very obviously more conservative area and Trump area, that you're going to get somebody on the jury that will say, hey, I disagree with the premise of this entire indictment and this entire trial, and so I am going to consistently vote to acquit because there's just no reason we should have. That's the hope, and that is also why, again, they are trying to, Trump's attorneys and Trump's team is trying to move the D.C. one out of D.C. is because they know that D.C. hates Trump. So let's get back into a little bit about the strategy of these three indictments that they currently have. Right now, in terms of the January 6th one in D.C., is that Jack Smith is saying that Donald Trump lied, January 6th was bad, and both of those things are bad and go together, which is, and so he's trying to say that that's a crime. That's not in and of itself a crime. That's not how it works. Again, if he wanted to make that into a crime, he would charge Trump with incitement of a riot, incitement of an insurrection. But he's not going to, because that was pretty much done in the second impeachment of Donald Trump, and he was acquitted. So this is also, what they're charging him with instead is conspiracy in an attempt to defraud, disenfranchise, and obstruct the outcome of the 2020 election, which again, all of that hinges on them being able to provide and prove that Trump hadn't actually convinced himself that the election was stolen, that Pence had the authority to overturn the results of January 6th. There's also a pending criminal investigation in Georgia, but that has yet to yield an indictment. And so I'll wait to cover that one until I actually know more about it. The point of all of this, though, is that they're trying to go after Trump at every which way to interfere with the 2024 election. The reason why Jack Smith said that, so in a statement, when he announced the indictment, Jack Smith said that he believes this case in D.C. will go quick. And the reason he did this is because they're already laying the groundwork to undermine the argument that Trump's attorney just is basically trying to make right now, that they should delay the trial because he has 3 pending indictments. He has a potential 4th underway, all while Trump is also trying to run a presidential campaign. So they're going to try to say that the case should be put off until after the election, as he's a very busy man. And this judge, like I said earlier, is an Obama-appointed left-wing nut job, and so she's unlikely to go for it. And Jack Smith is already giving her reason not to. So here's the 3 things real quick as we're coming to the end of this segment. And I have some other things I want to cover. There's 3 things I want to make sure is well known about this case and about all these cases. Is this most recent indictment is purely political, and I don't mean it's infused with political jargon or surrounds political issues. Obviously, it does those. What I mean is that the reason of this indictment is to mess with our political system and Trump's ability to run as a candidate. It is meant to distract him and his campaign, as well as distract the American people from Joe Biden's corruption. I know this because their charges against him, like I said, make no sense. The second thing is Trump's base is only getting more supportive of him from all these indictments and everything. And so, keep indicting him if you want to. He's just going to keep growing and growing. And maybe that's their goal. I don't know. And the third thing that I know from these indictments that we really should keep an eye on is, and it's probably the scariest thing, is that our justice system is being weaponized to blatantly interfere with the 2024 presidential election and blatantly interfere with your rights as American citizens and the idea of your right to vote and have free and fair elections, along with the fact that we now have a 2-tier justice system that serves those only in power of a certain ideology. And so I got a lot more to talk about here, but I do have to take a break on the radio. Everybody stay tuned because, oh my gosh, we're just getting started here. We have 30 minutes left in Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Stay tuned for your more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay. Let's get to some of your comments. I know, DG, we're going to disagree with each other on this one. Well, it's not just the Hill, though. A lot of media sources were I mean, I bet you I could find a Fox article. I bet I could find a New York Post article. The first one I just found was the Hill. Show me how, okay, so you're going and calling me youthful and naive. Show me the alternative, right? Show me the alternative. Because just name calling and saying, I mean, yeah, I'm youthful. I'll admit I'm naive in some things, but this is not one that I would claim to be naive on. This is a question to ask, but he obviously in the recording said that he had a classified document that he had not unclassified. So that's why I'm saying that it holds the most weight. Yeah, I'm actually pretty convinced that I'm pretty convinced that Pence, the only reason why he is in this race is to mess with Trump, like in some spiteful way. In the past, I never totally disliked Trump. I don't think Pence had the authority on January 6th to overturn the election. I don't think that was within his authority. And I also think that it would have caused a billion times more chaos had he tried to. All of that said, his actions recently have been egregious and stupid. That's what I'm trying to say is you can't, I can understand somebody disagreeing with it or something, but like you can't prove that it's not true. So, wait and see from the court. That's the way that I could say. That's why I'm saying right now, as I see it, that case holds the most weight is because there actually is, like, all the other cases, like they're flimsy and weak. This one actually has, like, the charges relate directly to the evidence that they provided in the indictment. And so there is genuine evidence to show that he probably committed those crimes or potentially committed those crimes. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the biggest thing, Raven. Rules for thee, but not for me. I saw my progressive friend up here. I appreciate your knowledge. Trump said that self to respond to you get delayed, but thank you. I appreciate it. Of course. Okay. I have to take a breath. Obviously, I'm heated. I'm going to play a clip from one of my other live streams just because I want to react more again to this. I want to react to the porn star. And so we're gonna find this clip, and I believe I clipped the. So we will be back here soon on the radio, and I'm going to cover this. I'm just watching something here real quick to make sure that I get. Well, I hope you come back, Raven, and I hope you have a good day. Okay, we're about to come back here on the radio. Okay. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been covering a lot of different things today. I've been covering Joe Biden and the Biden crime family and how they're actually being exposed for their corruption, finally. I mean, like Devon Archer comes out and basically shows that Biden was involved. Joe was involved with his son's business dealings, over 20 phone calls. That was crazy story. I also covered how the media is manipulating the narrative, and the Democrats are also working with the media to manipulate that narrative. We could see every time that something damaging to Joe Biden comes out, or immediately after there's some scandal or an indictment against Trump. And usually these indictments are relatively flimsy and hold very little weight to them. But I want to get into some different stories. If you guys missed any of that stuff, you can go listen to our podcast on cities929.com, on Spotify, everything like that. Or you could even go watch our live streams and videos and clips and everything on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. I personally am on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. So wherever you want to watch, you can watch and interact with me right now live in studio. You can see me live in studio right now. Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student. And you could even you could leave me a comment. I get to those especially during the breaks. Or if you don't want to do any of that, you could also text or call in at 309-451-9299. Again, 309-451-9299. I really appreciate you guys listening and staying tuned in, because obviously I'm trying to cover the news as it really is, because again, the mainstream, the lamestream media will not. And so I have a video here and I reacted to it on my YouTube channel. I just think it's important to discuss, because so this is I'm just going to give a blanket statement here. A former porn star, Mia Khalifa, came out last week and went viral for having marriage advice on her TikTok. And so I'm going to play this clip. I believe I edited it down so it does not have any of the curse words or anything in it. If it does on the radio, it's going to dump. And so you might miss a little part of it, but don't worry, I'll recap it. Let's play. I'm going to play this clip right now here for us so that we can just listen to what Mia Khalifa has to say about marriage. And I'm going to give my thoughts. So just wait, just stay tuned and listen in for this clip. I got muted. Here we go.
Brady at this game. Married at 18, divorced at 21. Second marriage, married at 25, divorced at 28. Third engagement, engaged at 29, ended it at 30, but I kept the ring. I'm still keeping Tom Brady on his toes. We should not be afraid to leave these men. We are not stuck with these people. Marriage is not a sanctimonious thing. It is paperwork. It's something, it's a commitment you make to someone. But if you feel like you're not getting anything from that commitment and you're trying, you gotta go. You have to go. I know it's difficult to fill out paperwork and to make appointments and to do all of these things, but this is life. Do you want to be stuck with someone? Period. Do you want to be stuck with someone?
So you're just going to be stuck with somebody, according to Mia Khalifa. That's how it works. I did a good job editing that too. I was really proud of myself, making sure that I got the F-bomb out of there. But you're just going to be stuck with someone. And so I am not married. I'm going to start off there. I'm 22. I'm not married. I'm not currently in a relationship. But I want to talk about this because here's the thing is, so she says marriage is just paperwork. Marriage is not sanctimonious. Okay. Again, I'm no marriage expert, but I feel as though this advice is problematic for a few reasons. And I'm going to use some statistics and we're going to break this down a little bit more. But for a few reasons, this advice is problematic. So first off, let's just question the background of the person giving this advice. Let's question that background because, again, this is a former porn star, Mia Khalifa, arguably known, like especially in youth culture, she's very well known. Obviously, we know there's a porn epidemic among young people, especially young men. But so she's very well known. But the majority of marriages, let's just compare this for a second. I feel like her fame fundamentally disagrees with the idea of marriage. And what I mean by this is the majority of marriages in America seem to be, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a marriage expert, but the majority of American marriages seem to be built around a monogamous relationship. The majority on monogamy. And this woman, Mia Khalifa, got her fame and made most of her living and money by performing sexual acts and engaging intimately with many people, men and women, sometimes many at once. And so is a person that engaged in those acts and made a living through those acts, is she going to be the expert on monogamy? That's the first thing. Now, let's also question the advice itself and the things she says. Marriage is just paperwork. Marriage is not sanctimonious. She also has been through three marriages before the age of 30, which is another thing to question about it. But the advice itself, and while the premise of this advice, like I said, is insane, we got to kind of take it seriously, because there are people that will listen to this and genuinely agree with some of her sentiment. Because what she essentially says is, if you're bored with somebody, drop them. She says in there, quote, do you want to be stuck with someone? Because that's how she views marriage as, is you're just stuck with somebody. And of course she'd have that viewpoint, because she's used to being able to engage in sexual intimacy with pretty much anybody she ever wants. So let's walk this out a little bit, though, because I do believe that this is actually indicative of a larger ideological trend, especially among young women. I talked about earlier in the show how a lot of young women, seniors in high school, are trending liberal. And I think this actually kind of goes a little bit with that. But let's walk this out. First off, while not all young women are making money off their promiscuity, it is on the rise. Promiscuity, especially among young women, is on the rise. The digital paywall platform OnlyFans, which many people know of, has essentially allowed all women, if they would like to profit off intimate pictures and videos. And why do I focus on women here? The reason I focus on women here is because not every man could go online and post revealing pictures of themselves and make money off of it. Almost any woman could. And that's a man's fault too. I'm telling you, that's a man's fault. I mean, men are the primary consumer, and thus they enable this kind of behavior. So it's men's fault too. But female promiscuity is on the rise. Not only that, statistics back up my claims of increased promiscuity. In a study of sexual trends in the United States, researchers at the University of Utah found that promiscuity is rising for women and actually declining for men. The number of women who've had sex with more than 15 partners has increased over the past few decades from 3% to 7%. And while, yes, 15 partners, in my opinion, is a lot, first off, and then 3 to 7% doesn't feel like a lot, but that is kind of a lot. The amount of people that are sleeping with, the amount of young women that are sleeping with over 15 partners, from 3 to 7%, kind of a big deal, if you ask me. And that said, let's also look at divorce rates over the last decade, because here's what I'm trying to do is I want to relate just how. So Mia Khalifa has been divorced 3 times before 30. She also is obviously a very promiscuous person, having been a former porn star. So let's relate the idea of promiscuity, especially female promiscuity, to the idea of divorce. Okay, well, divorce rates, according to the United States Census, the 2021 divorce rate dropped actually to 6.9% in the last year, from 9.7% divorces per 1,000 women in 2011. So I'm sorry, not 6.9%, 6.9 per 1,000 women last year, from 9.7. So it's down just about 3 points. Well, and so that would seem good, right? It would lead you to believe that increased sexual promiscuity has actually led to a lower divorce rate. But that's not true. That's wrong. Because let's look at another statistic. Also, according to the United States Census, in 2021, U.S. marriage rates were 14.9 marriages per 1,000 women, as opposed to a decade ago, which was 16.3. So if you haven't been able to follow with the numbers, I'll make it really simple for you. Female promiscuity, young female promiscuity, is on the rise statistically. Divorces are lowering, but marriages are also lowering, the amount of people getting married. And so here's what's happening is there's an increased level of promiscuity. Less people are getting married, and thus less people are also getting divorces. So while divorces have gone down a bit, marriages have gone down a comparable amount. And with that, another thing to know is that birth rates are down about 13% in the last 15 years. So let's bring this back to Mia Khalifa and her marriage advice. She says, just drop them. If you're bored with them, just drop them. Well, that seems to be what a lot of people are doing to marriage and parenthood as a whole. They are going for the indulgence, the sexual indulgence, the promiscuity over any type of commitment. And what is this all indicative of? What does this all mean? Well, what it relates to is we live right now in a world, and this is pretty much indisputable with our phones and with the increase of technology and media, everything like that. We live in a world where instant gratification is king. The slightest hint of hardship or boredom must be eradicated. And that has led us down a road of our own demise. Again, declining birth rates, declining marriages, declining belief in God and religiousness, decline. Nowadays, people look for a quick hit of happiness wherever they can get it. They don't look down a long, hard road for a light at the end of the tunnel. They look down a long, hard road and choose the short path instead for instant gratification. And while I understand this next part is anecdotal, the young people I know who are physically fit, in a long-term stable relationship, they're either engaged or married, they're having or are expecting children, and live a life in fear but in reverence of God, those people seem a million times happier than those that I know that live a life for self-servance and indulgence. The people that only live their life for themselves. They don't care about God. They don't care about a community. They don't care about any kind of calling or anything of higher purpose. They don't seem as happier as the people that I see that are actually living a life of some kind of purpose greater than themselves. So while some in society heeds Mia Khalifa's advice, drop them. If you're bored, just get rid of them. Always try to look for the next thing that'll make you happy. No one ever said, here's a big thing. No one ever said life was going to be easy. Life isn't easy. Life is meant to be hard. The challenges you face will teach you more than anything that goes right for you. Period. I'm 22 and I've learned that. Look, I'm not going to say the challenges like you should just appreciate all of them, but they're going to teach you something. And so when there are people that are heeding Mia's advice, they're going towards it. Let's encourage others around us, because here's the thing is I don't want to just give you a hopeless look of the world. There is hope. And one thing we can do, focus on what you can do, not what you can't. What you can do is encourage others to consider an alternative. Don't always look for that instant gratification. And my best advice that I would have for anybody out there, alternative to Mia's, because she seems to be preaching an idea that is counter the idea of wanting to help society. If you want to help society, because she obviously has no common sense, my best advice is to think like I do. Get married, have a lot of children, and we can repopulate common sense into society. Because the thing is, if birth rates are declining, let the liberals talk about how, well, we have too many people. We need to get population under control. Let them talk about that. Make sure they don't have kids. If anything, I encourage liberals. You don't have to have children. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Conservatives will take care of that. Have big families. And that's how we'll win elections. And that's how we can have common sense back into society. Starts with us. Get married. Get married first, though. Don't just have kids. Get married before you have kids. Have a lot of children. Repopulate common sense into society. Everybody, I got to take a break on the radio. We'll be back to end out the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and you're watching Speechless watching or listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay, let's get to some comments here. I'm going to pull up a seat because I'm tired, and I stand for most of my show. Marriage in the spiritual sense is sacred, but for centuries, marriage was an arrangement and wives were like property. That's not how it's defined in Judeo-Christianity, but sadly, it's often that way. Yep. Marriage in America is failing. You're right. She never said she was an expert on monogamy. You're right about that. Well, again, I'm saying men are part of the problem too, because there's a lot of men that encourage it. You're right. There are men that can do well on OnlyFans, but the thing is that it's pretty well known that especially because the majority of pornographic content consumers are men. And the majority of men are straight. And so it's not going to, so not any man could go on and make money off of OnlyFans. Not any man could do that. I'd argue generally that almost any woman, or at least women, have a much easier time making money off of pornographic content than men do. That's what I'm trying to say there. This is true as well. Make sure you find the right person. Absolutely. Make sure you find the right person. Okay. We'll be back soon. Thank you guys so much for staying tuned. We got just a few more minutes here. This is also true. Yeah. Men don't usually. I mean, I know this is a really weird. If anybody's just tuning in and is wondering why I got this comment, go back a few minutes and look at the conversation that we were having. But that's another point to make, is that the majority of times, women have just the porn industry is heavily driven by male consumer, with emphasis on the objectification of women. Period. Yes, there are instances in which men venture into that area. I don't know. It's just sick, all of it. With the society that's normalized all of that. But I got a different story to cover here. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and we're just going to end out. I got a totally radically different story to cover in the last few minutes, but first I just want to recap everything that we kind of talked about today. So I started off the show talking, and so if you missed any of this and any of these stories interest you and you want to hear the commentary, go to cities929.com. You can look up our podcast. You could also go see them immediately after the show is done on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble. Just look up Speechless with Kev Phares, last name Phares, or you could look up on Cities 929 Facebook or Twitter, and all of the videos that we have, not only from my show, but DPB's earlier today and Conservative Kat Peterson's, all of her stuff is also on those pages. But the stories I covered today. So I started off talking about Devon Archer. Devon Archer obviously exposed in his House congressional testimony last week that the Bidens are corrupt and they're liars, which we all knew, but now it's just like absolutely confirmed. And so we have that. But then I also covered how the media is lying to us and how they're creating associations between Trump being a criminal, and they're trying to distract you with the Trump indictments, which are something we should pay attention to, obviously, because it is election interference in 2024. But those indictments are being used as distractions away from the Biden crime family's corruption, period. That's what it is. And then I talked about each and every one of the current indictments against President Trump. I talked about what merit they may or may not hold. And you go look at all that. But then I also touched on one of the most important things, which shows our two-tiered justice system, and how even though Trump may have committed a crime in Florida, as it relates to the classified documents, almost every other person who has either been president or vice president in my lifetime, if not before, including Bill Clinton as well, has also violated those laws, and yet only one of them is being charged. What does that say? And so I want to even say, too, just building off that, just as I was thinking about this, it's not even a two-tiered justice system of liberal privilege versus or Democrat versus Republican. It's establishment, right? It's establishment versus anti-establishment. That's the dichotomy that we have. And I think that's one thing that Trump really has exposed in his candidacy and his presidency, and now is in his candidacy again, is how much it's not always Democrat versus Republican. It's bigger than that. It's an establishment that includes people from both parties that is versus the American people and your average Joe and your person that's not necessarily a part of or in that establishment. And Trump would be one to know that, considering he was very involved with the establishment, especially as he donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign. But I digress. I want to cover this last story in the last 2 minutes I have here. So the United States women's national team lost today to Sweden. And it was a game that literally was decided by a millimeter. The ball barely crossed the goal line in a shootout. Megan Rapinoe, you guys might know her. She's the one that always goes crazy about liberal crap. This was like her last game ever. And she also said that she believes men should be in women's sports, which is just insane. But they lost in this shootout. She missed her last shot, which was kind of fitting for her, especially as she seeks to destroy women's sports. But the biggest thing I want to say about this is that there's Americans that are cheering on their loss. And I think that's fitting because they're also the same team that takes knees and doesn't sing along to their national anthem. They've been in a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have been an anti-American team. And so it really says something when we have athletes that are supposed to be recognizing us on the world stage, and yet your own country isn't really rooting for you. Yeah. What does that say? We need to reinstill patriotism into the American people. We need to reinstill American pride into, and if you're going to, it's my personal belief, honestly, that if you're going to represent America on the national stage, you should have to profess your love for this country. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to go represent us at the Olympics. You shouldn't be able to go represent us at the World Cup or anything like that and not like represent this country and the people that love it. Just all I'm saying. Everybody, I got to get out of here, but thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Tune in next week from 3 to 5 or on my YouTube channel, Speechless with Kev Phares. You've been listening to Speechless with Kev Phares on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, everybody, I got to get out of here from the live stream too. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. I really appreciate it. God bless each and every one of you, and have a wonderful week. Tune in on my YouTube channel for more content throughout the week on Speechless. Thank you, guys. And like I said, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a great week.